Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something, well, it's generating a lot of buzz in health circles, NMN.
That's nicotinamide mononucleotide.
Exactly. And if you're listening, you've probably heard about it, right?
Oh, definitely. It's everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, word of mouth,
Yeah,
lots of chatter.
for sure. So maybe just quickly, what is NMN for anyone maybe newer to it?
Right. So it's a molecule derived from vitamin B3. Your body makes it naturally.
Okay.
And it's basically a building block, a precursor for another really vital molecule, NAD plus N.
Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide.
That's the one. And NAD plus, well, it's critical. We're talking metabolism, basic cell function.
Right, keeping things running.
Exactly. Plus DNA repair, how cells handle stress, even how your genes get expressed. It's fundamental stuff.
So our mission today is to really dig into the science. We've looked at quite a bit of research, several human studies included.
Yeah, the goal is to see what the evidence actually says about these benefits everyone's talking about.
Trying to separate, the hope from the actual hype, see what holds up.
Let's start with how it's supposed to work. The main idea behind NMN
Is boosting NAD plus serate, right?
precisely because those NAD plus levels, they tend to drop off as we get older.
And that connects to sirtuins. I hear those mentioned a lot with longevity.
Sirtuins, sometimes called longevity genes. Dr. Sinclair's team did a lot of work there. They need NAD plus to function properly.
And they help protect against age-related things like Alzheimer's, diabetes.
That's the thinking, yes. They regulate cellular processes, help repair damage, things that go wrong with age.
Interesting.
And NAD plus isn't just for long-term stuff. It's also involved in how cells, well, survive tough times.
Like exercise or
Yeah.
dieting.
Exactly. Exercise, calorie restriction, even hitting the sauna NAD plus plays a big role in those stress responses.
Okay, so the theory makes sense. Boost NAD plus O, help these processes. Now, does taking NMN actually raise NAD plus levels in people? What's the evidence there?
Yeah, on that specific point, the research is pretty consistent.
Oh, really?
Yes. Multiple studies show that NMN supplements do increase NAD plus levels in the blood.
Okay.
And that's been seen with different doses too, from maybe 250 milligrams up to over a gram a day.
So blood levels go up. That seems clear. But, and this feels like the critical question, does that increased NAD plus in the blood translate to higher levels in other places? Like, importantly, in our muscles?
Yes. That is the crucial question because a lot of the hoped-for benefits, energy, performance, relate to muscle.
Right.
And here, the findings are, well, they're more mixed. Some studies actually found no increase in muscle NAD plus levels.
Oh, even though the blood levels went up.
Exactly, despite the rise in blood NAD plus levels. So that's
Yeah.
a really important wrinkle.
That is interesting. And doesn't exercise itself play a role here too?
It does. There's research suggesting that older adults who exercise regularly can maintain muscle NAD plus levels.
Keep them similar to younger people.
Potentially, yes. Which kind of implies that maybe supplementation isn't always the key thing for muscle NAD plus lead, at least if you're active.
So if we circle back to fitness benefits, what do the human trials show about actual muscle performance? Is there a boost beyond just, thinking it's working?
Yeah, the placebo effect. When you look at analyses pooling multiple studies on fitness and muscle performance, the overall conclusion tends to be that the evidence for NMN giving a significant boost beyond placebo is, well, it's considered weak right now.
Okay, but let's look closer. There were some studies, right, like with runners.
Yes, there was one study with amateur runners. It did find some improvement in aerobic capacity.
That's how your body uses oxygen during exercise.
Right, during moderate effort. This was seen with higher NMN doses, 600 milligrams twice daily, I believe.
Okay.
And the researchers suggested maybe a synergy with their training. NMN plus exercise working better together.
But what about those studies showing people could walk further?
Right, the walking tests. There, you have to be a bit careful. Some of those studies involved participants who weren't very fit to begin with.
Which can make improvements look bigger than they might be.
Potentially, yes. And, as always, you have to consider who funded the study. That can sometimes introduce bias.
Always a factor. So overall verdict on muscle performance seems not super convincing yet.
Based on the current collective evidence, that seems fair.
Okay, let's shift gears. What about metabolic health? Things like blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, cholesterol.
Another area with somewhat mixed results, unfortunately.
Not clear cut either.
Not really. Some studies did hint at benefits. For example, improved insulin sensitivity in pre-diabetic women.
That sounds positive.
It does. But then other studies found no significant effect, and some even suggested a potential increase in insulin levels for some people.
Which isn't what you want.
No, definitely not.
So interpreting those metabolic studies sounds tricky.
Very. And some had methodological quirks, like one study had the placebo group get significantly worse, which makes it hard to isolate the NMN effect.
Yeah, that complicates things.
So overall, the evidence for major metabolic benefits from NMN across the board isn't, I'd say, overly strong at this point.
Okay. What else have they looked at? Sleep, energy, brain function. Any traction there?
They've looked into those areas, but again, the evidence is pretty limited. There was one study suggesting older adults taking NMN in the afternoon felt less drowsy and had quicker muscle responses.
Interesting. Did it improve their actual sleep quality overall?
No, it didn't seem to improve overall sleep quality in that study.
And for other things, like general well-being, hearing, cognition, arterial stiffness.
For most of those other areas studied, there just isn't strong evidence showing significant improvements from NMN right now.
Right. Okay, let's talk safety and dosage. Obviously, super important if people are considering this.
Absolutely crucial. The good news from the short-term human studies we have is that NMN generally appears safe.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Yeah, studies using up to 1.2 grams a day, even higher sometimes, haven't reported serious side effects.
But generally safe doesn't mean zero side effects, right? Some people do report things.
That's true. Mild side effects have been reported, especially at higher doses. Things like maybe some skin reactions, digestive issues, headaches, dizziness.
Sleep problems, too.
Yes, sometimes sleep disturbances. But often, these seem to lessen if the dose is lowered or adjusted.
Okay. And then there's the whole FDA situation in the U.S. That's a big one.
A very big one. The FDA decided NMN can't be marketed as a dietary supplement anymore.
Because it's being investigated as a drug.
Exactly. Since it was authorized for investigation as a new drug, it technically falls out of the supplement category according to their rules.
Which definitely complicates things for availability and regulation moving forward.
No doubt about it.
And we should also mention animal studies versus humans, right?
Yeah.
Just because animals tolerate high doses.
Doesn't automatically mean it's fine for humans long term. That's a standard precaution.
Sure. Human trials have used up to 2 grams a day, I think you said?
They have. But there's always a theoretical concern, based on other forms of vitamin B3, about potential liver effects at very high sustained doses. We don't have proof of that with NMN, but it's a consideration.
And what are typical doses people actually buy versus what's used in research?
Well, the products often market doses around 250, 350 milligrams. But research has tested a much wider range, 100 milligrams up to over a gram, like we mentioned.
And the key thing is, we don't really have long-term human safety data, do we?
No, that's a major gap. We don't know the effects of taking NMN for years and years.
Okay. Beyond safety, there's another big issue people raise, quality and purity. Are you actually getting what you pay for?
This is a huge problem, unfortunately.
Really?
Yes. Independent tests have found that a worrying number of NMN supplements out there just don't contain the amount of NMN listed on the label.
Wow. So you could be buying something with very little or maybe even no NMN at all.
Exactly. Some analyses found exactly that. A significant percentage had little to none.
That's pretty shocking, even ones with good reviews or those certificates of analysis.
Even those haven't been foolproof, no. Chromadex, a company involved in NAD+ precursors, did some testing that highlighted these discrepancies. It really shows you can't always trust the label or online reviews.
So extreme caution needed when buying, especially online.
Definitely. It's a real buyer beware situation.
Okay, so given all these uncertainties, mixed results, safety questions, quality issues, what about natural ways to support NAD+ levels? Things we can do without supplements.
This brings us back to basics, doesn't it? Lifestyle foundations.
Which are often more powerful anyway.
Absolutely. A healthy diet is key. Some foods do contain tiny amounts of NMN, like raw beef, cabbage, avocado, broccoli, edamame, but the levels are quite low.
So you can't really eat your way to high NMN levels easily.
Not realistically, no. But diet quality matters overall for NAD+ mal.
What else? Intermittent fasting? Calorie restriction?
Yes, those practices show potential for influencing NAD+ levels positively.
And exercise. That came up earlier.
Exercise is a big one. Consistently shown to boost NAD+ levels. It's really effective.
Good quality sleep.
Crucial. Probably supports NAD+ indirectly.
Yeah.
And just vital for overall health.
What about things like sauna or cold exposure? That temperature stress?
Yeah, that hormetic stress principle.
Yeah.
There's some thought that things like sauna use and cold plunges might also help support NAD plus pathways.
So lots of lifestyle levers we can pull.
Foundational levers, really.
It's good to be reminded of that. Now, what are some of the experts saying? We mentioned Sinclair, but who else?
Well, you have people like Dr. Andrew Huberman. He's talked about personally using NR, which is related, and
Yeah.
sometimes NMN for energy.
But he notes the FDA ruling.
Yes, and he's very clear he has no financial ties and stresses that supplements aren't the base of health. Lifestyle first.
And Dr. Sinclair, still optimistic.
He discusses his own use and belief of the potential, absolutely. But he's also realistic, acknowledging that proof of actual human lifespan extension from NMN isn't there yet.
Right, that's still under investigation.
Mm.
Any more skeptical voices?
Dr. Brad Stanfield has done very detailed reviews of the human NMN trials.
And his take?
His conclusion, based on the current data, is pretty cautious. He finds limited proof of benefits beyond placebo for generally healthy folks.
Okay.
And he, like others, points out the funding issues for positive studies funded by NMN companies. Though, to be fair, some studies showing no effect also had industry links. It cuts both ways.
And the animal studies. Always that caveat.
Always. Promising results in mice don't guarantee the same in humans. It's just a different biology.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Summing up this deep dive on NMN, where do we stand?
Well, we see promise in animal models. And in humans, some limited short-term effects are popping up in certain trials.
Like the NAD plus blood level increase.
Right, increased blood NAD plus some improvements in aerobic capacity for runners, maybe better insulin sensitivity in specific groups, like those pre-diabetic women.
And less drowsiness in that one study with older adults.
Exactly. Those specific findings are there.
And it's a big but. The really broad benefits often marketed for energy, anti-aging, overall performance in healthy people.
The strong, consistent evidence for those widespread benefits just isn't quite there yet, especially for people who are already generally healthy.
So the takeaway seems to be caution. Don't rely on a supplement like this as your primary strategy.
Absolutely. Prioritize those foundational health habits. Good diet, regular movement, quality sleep, managing stress. Those are the proven game changers.
And keep in mind the regulatory uncertainty and those really concerning quality control issues.
Definitely. You might not even be getting what you think you're buying.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Given that the human research is still pretty early stage, and we know lifestyle is so critical, is putting a huge focus on NMN right now the most effective use of your energy and resources for your health?
It's a really good question to ask yourself. Weigh the potential, which is still emerging, against the proven power of those healthy habits.
Stay informed, definitely. The research will continue to evolve.
And, as always, talk to your doctor. Before starting any new supplement, especially one like NMN with its complexities, get professional advice.
Excellent point. Thanks for breaking all that down.
My pleasure. It's a fascinating area.